Welcome to Nuggets 2023. I'm Sanjeev. I run the APM business at Netreo. I have the pleasure to welcome Dan Gidman, Principal Engineer and Chief Architect at Netreo. Welcome, Dan.
Hello again.
Well, it was not too far back. We released OpenTelemetry prefix, and now we're releasing OpenTelemetry appliance for Retrace. Can you tell more about OpenTelemetry appliance?
Yes, I can. So if you remember back then, we talked about OpenTelemetry, which is a telemetry format that's open, obviously OpenTelemetry, that sends your logs, your traces, and your metrics, your three streams of telemetry data from your applications into the vendor of your choice. It's vendor agnostic, right? So the OpenTelemetry appliance is the connection between that application and Retrace to transform those streams into data that Retrace understands.
I see. So what you're telling me is if a customer is sending OpenTelemetry streams now and they want to see on Retrace, they actually put OpenTelemetry appliance, which takes all the OTel data, converts it to Retrace and send it to Retrace?
Correct.
I see. How does it work? How does it get installed? How can our customers get up and running?
So the appliance itself is just basically a Docker image. It lives out there inside a registry, and just like any other containerized application, any other instance or image, I should say, you bring it up into a container environment, whether that is a Kubernetes pod, whether that is a Docker container, Azure container instances, or EKS, or however it is. It's just an image that you load up like any other containerized app.
I see. And it gets deployed in the customer environment.
And yes, it gets deployed in the customer environment, and it's expected to live there. We don't host it ourselves, correct? We don't host it ourselves. We keep it in your control right there in your environment.
Perfect. So what can customers do with it?
So you have your applications living out there, whether it's your AWS Lambdas or your Azure Functions or your GCP runs, right? Your run environments. And all of those are creating those telemetry data, and you've got your built-in providers doing those types of metrics and things giving you.
Right.
And you know, they have their versions of things they do and bring that out, and you can pay a good amount of money for those types of things. So what OpenTelemetry allows you to do there and with our appliance is take that same information, rather than shipping it to their services, or in addition to shipping it to their services, depending on how you want to do it, you send it to the appliance sends to Retrace, and you can see all of that data in very useful ways that we do in Retrace, with the correlations between logs and applications and traces, with our app identification, so that you actually see all of this nice information, logs, metrics, and apps, in the context in which you're used to deploying it.
Got it.
Right?
So what you're saying is, with our Retrace agent, we had this architecture stitch, as we call it, right? Stitching between traces, logs, errors. So even with the OpenTelemetry and in the appliance, we are maintaining this architecture stitch.
It's very important to us to maintain that. That's where the usefulness of this data comes through. It's not in singularity. It's not in isolation that this stuff is useful. It's when you see all of this stuff together in the context in which it's running.
I see. So customers who were previously using us for, let's say, host-based environments can now expand into more modern cloud infrastructure like serverless that you talked about, but also containerized applications like an ECS or EKS of the world.
Correct. Anything that supports OpenTelemetry now becomes a purview of Retrace, which is, for us, that's awesome. For you and those that are actually trying to support your applications, rather than seeing just a bunch of pretty pictures that is not very useful to you trying to support them, you can now get actionable things and discover, hey, this bug happened over here on this trace, and it's happening only for this sets of things, and here's your graph that shows it.
Awesome.
And here's your stack traces, and then and correlate that to CPU spikes, and correlate that to everything that we're bringing back and making a single pane of glass to view it on.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So what is unique about the appliance? So I know there are other vendors out there that claim to be supporting OpenTelemetry. What is unique with this appliance?
When you look at many of our other vendors, even the cloud providers that are out there, they take OpenTelemetry or they take all of those metrics directly. So the volume that they take is the volume that you're outputting,
Right.
which means that your costs increase directly, proportionally
To the amount of data.
to the amount of data you're sending or the amount of traffic you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not a bad problem to have. It's a great problem. You got a lot of traffic, right?
Yeah.
So what the appliance does for you is help you control those costs, because what we do is take all of that data and then crunch most of it right there inside the appliance, and then send samples of that data and aggregations,
Yeah.
crunched numbers,
That is awesome.
all the way up to Retrace. So
I
you're
see.
not dealing with, so think of it as a funnel. All that going into the appliance,
Yeah.
coming out of the
That's
appliance
compressed.
is much less.
Right. And that's what we consume on the Retrace side. So it's much more compressed versus the other providers who just kind of take the raw data in its whole,
Correct.
whole form, and then obviously you pay for that, right?
Yes.
Versus here, where you have the control of the data.
Mhm.
Do we also provide customers some level of control in terms of how much to send?
Yes, so there are several ways you can do that. The OTel collector itself, which often acts as OTel puts that out as kind of like your official center, the spoken out point for all of the vendors.
Yeah.
You can put controls in there to control what data goes out, but we can also do things inside our OTel appliance to say, hey, we don't care about these resources, we don't care about those traces, all of those things. We put controls in there as well.
That is awesome. So we put the control back to the customer.
Yes.
That is awesome. So look, Retrace has been around, has been a very popular product. We have like 1,000+ customers using Retrace. It's well known in the market for ease of install, ease of use. How is OpenTelemetry appliance going to be?
Like everything else in life, in some regards, it depends. That's the answer, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you have OTel already part of your applications, very easy install. Stand up the appliance wherever you want, grab the URL for that appliance wherever it lives, whether that's behind a private network or on a public network, and then put that URL into your settings on either your OTel exporter or on your application exporter settings.
Right.
And then it just works, right?
So it's just configuration change in that case.
Just a configuration change in that case. If you're already using Collector, oftentimes it's something that can be done by your DevOps teams versus actually touching your application code. But that's the I have OTel case, right? Now, between the I have OTel case and I don't have OTel case, you have a spectrum of support.
Right.
Now that spectrum, for instance, AWS Lambda, depending upon your language, they have layers you can add in there to do what we call, or what OTel calls auto instrumentation.
Right.
Instrumentation, I should say.
Yeah.
And where it will automatically pick up all of the traces and send that in the OTel format to a localized container. That's that layer, that localized layer inside the application.
Right.
And in that case, it's a little more work, but it's still very easy because it's adding the layer and then adding the exporter to go out to the appliance.
It's very easy. Yeah, absolutely.
So, now, and there's a spectrum, obviously, right? That's one spectrum of the auto instrumentation. Now, on the worst case, you don't have OTel. Now, that's the worst case scenario for anybody, right? That means you have to touch your apps and you have to redeploy your apps to either add in that instrumentation manually, or sometimes some of the languages out there has auto instrumentation where you just have to make sure you include the correct resources in the application deployment.
I get it. Yeah. Look, I think it's only one time, right? So the promise of OpenTelemetry is that once you move towards OpenTelemetry, you've taken that extra mile. Then after that, you're really vendor agnostic, right?
Correct.
So you can send it to OpenTelemetry appliance, and of course in our roadmap. So right now what we are looking at is control, but in our roadmap we are also providing choice, right? So it's not just Retrace. Moving forward in the OpenTelemetry appliance, we want to expand that to giving customers a choice to send that data to open source if they want, like a Prometheus Grafana,
Correct.
or even to the other vendors if they like, right?
Yeah.
So what we're talking about here is this is like the first step in the customer journey to take back control of data. And in our roadmap, we are going to provide you the choice as well. So we are on that journey. You've seen the video before where we launched OTel Prefix. Now we are launching OTel Appliance for Retrace, and we'll continue with our customers on that journey to give you control and give you choice. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Sanjeev.
Good morning, Nugget 2023. My name is Dan Gidman, and here at Netreo, I am a principal engineer for Stackify and the Retrace and Prefix products. Retrace is the telemetry tool that is used in your deployed dev, QA, and production environments to monitor your applications and to help identify, fix, and triage issues that occur. Whether your app has slow queries, exceptions, strange or unexpected behaviors, or is simply not working, Retrace is the tool that developers, DevOps, and QA uses to quickly solve the problems you are having with custom applications and integrations. Prefix is the tool that developers use to help them code better and faster by creating an unobtrusive feedback loop of coding, testing, and observing the transactions and logs of their applications on their development boxes as they code. We think of it as the developer sidekick. Now, let's face it, as businesses continue to modernize their applications and infrastructure, they move to the cloud or make use of cloud-based technologies, whether it's self-hosted or vendor-hosted. And doing so, they need an equally advanced and capable data solution to monitor those apps and infrastructure. And OpenTelemetry is becoming the de facto standard of collecting and transmitting the fundamental building blocks of telemetry data, logs, traces, and metrics in the cloud computing environments. OpenTelemetry is being integrated natively into all the cloud computing vendors and technologies such as Kubernetes, Docker, AWS, Azure, Lambda, functions, containers, .NET, Python, Go, PHP, and the list goes on and on and on. And I know, it kind of sounds like that never-ending song the Little Lamb sings. OpenTelemetry and Retrace provides a single pane of glass to commingle the traces, logs, and metrics from your app's infrastructure into a place where it all can make sense. Now, to support this foundation, over the last year and more, we have and are making great strides in bringing OpenTelemetry to Retrace. We first did this with Prefix, which has support for OTel traces and log streams built in natively and allows developers to see how their applications will look and report in deployed environments. And now we're doing this Retrace in the form of the Netreo OpenTelemetry Appliance. So what is OTel Appliance? Great question. Glad you asked. Our OTel Appliance is the interface between OpenTelemetry and Retrace and provides the functionality to transform trace, log, and metric streams to the formats that Retrace uses while decreasing ingestion costs by being hosted in your own environment. The OTel Appliance is a container image that can be stood up in the environment of your choice. By simply adding an endpoint to the OTel collector exporters, you can take your OTel instrumented apps and start using Retrace with them quickly, without having to update your own application. Now, the appliance lives inside your network, so you never have to expose your data externally. It can handle multiple applications' data, so one appliance can service many instances. Now, how does it work? Well, the OpenTelemetry world is generally segregated into three areas. Your applications which transmit logs, traces, and metrics that it generates. The OpenTelemetry collector, which receives, processes, and retransmits the data streams to one or more vendor endpoints. And finally, the vendors which receive the data and act upon it. What makes this all work is that OpenTelemetry is vendor agnostic. It doesn't care where you send your telemetry data. It only cares about collecting it and providing the framework to send it to the vendor of your choice. Now, most vendors ingest OTel data. They do so directly. You give them a URL that you plug in, and you send all of that data raw straight to them. They take the log and the trace data and the metric data, and they charge you for each log, span, and metric they receive. Now, this can be costly, both in money and network egress and ingress. Our appliance mitigates these costs by placing itself inside your infrastructure, giving you control back, places it as a standalone application, and it can be hosted in many forms. A VM that built using a Docker Compose that can be stood up next to an OTel collector, a pod inside a Kubernetes cluster, a container instance inside Azure Container Instances or AWS Elastic Container Services, or any containerized platform or service out there. There, it will receive the telemetry streams from either your applications directly or from a pre-configured OpenTelemetry collector, and then aggregate them, taking the aggregated data and samples and submitting that much smaller payload to Retrace. Retrace then correlates and presents all this application data in unified views such that you can see all of this telemetry related to each other, just like its source, and see the insights, performance issues, and errors in the context in which they occur. Now, if you are already an OTel adopter, using the appliance is simple and straightforward. It can be accomplished by your infrastructure team quickly. If you do not use OTel, then instrumenting your apps could be as simple as turning on some already built-in features in your cloud ecosystem, but it also may require manual instrumentation and deployment of your apps. However, the good news of manual instrumentation is that OTel is vendor agnostic. It does not lock you into a vendor, which means that should you move your APM vendor or try something else at a later date, all the work and time put into instrumenting your apps, it's not wasted at all. It's still of use. Now, Retrace will continue to support your technology wherever it lies, however it's made, with support for 12 languages, all the major cloud vendors, hundreds of technologies and frameworks, and extensibility to support your custom instrumentation and a large invested community of supporters and providers. OTel and Retrace continue to provide the best support and visibility into how your apps work, how well they perform, where and why they break, and decrease your time to fix actual problems. Welcome to the new world of OpenTelemetry. Now that's all well and good, but let's do an actual example of bringing up the appliance into an actual cloud container, situation. So, as the overall architecture here you can see is, you have your cloud or local containers of the actual applications. There's going to be a collector out there in a container that contains the actual OTel appliance, and that is going to communicate with the Retrace platform to send up the logs, traces, and metrics and correlate all of them together as well as the errors so that you can use them inside Retrace and get all those nice features that we want. So that's the general architecture right here. You've got all of your apps live wherever they are. They're going to communicate with the appliance, and then the appliance is going to communicate with Retrace. This line right here kind of represents the separation between your network up here and Retrace's network down below. So the agent we are going to be using, the container we're going to be using is can be found in GitHub, or not GitHub, I'm sorry, in Docker, hub.docker.com. Just do a quick look for Retrace OTel agent and you're going to find it right there. And we're going to be using Azure Container Instances. Right here, as you see, I've already got one set up here. This OTel demo container instance is already set up. But we'll go through the process of setting the second one up here as well. And just real quickly, we're going to be using this this Retrace account that I set up very quickly as the one we're going to talk to. Now, first of all, let's go ahead and grab your activation key. That's the first thing you're going to need here in this process. So we're going to grab that. We're going to go over to Container Instances inside the Microsoft Azure portal, and we're just going to create one, right? It's going to come up here. It's going to say what subscription. We're going to select a resource group. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call this one OTel Demo 2. SKU, we're going to say other registry. And let's type in Stackify / retrace OTel agent and with the tag of latest. And we're not going to change the size or the OS type. It's going to Linux, and we're going to keep it small, 1 vPCU, 1.5 gigabytes. Should be strong enough for everything we're doing right now. We'll go over to networking, and this is an example. We're just going to keep it as public, but obviously you out in your environments would want to have it as private and make it part of your private networks. But we're just going to keep it public. Port 80 is the OTLP HTTP protocol. That's your OTLP over HTTP. And port 443 is your OTLP gRPC protocol. That's over the gRPC, the Google RPC format. So we're going to open up both of those. But we're going to make use of 80. We're just going to open up both of those here. So we'll go over to advanced. We're going to add a couple keys. So the first one is going to be retrace activation key. And we're going to enter in that value. Then we're going to add in retrace environment OTel, and we're going to say OTel Demo 2. That's going to be the default environment set for everything connected to this agent. And we're going to go over to tags, skip right by tags, go over to review and create, see what we see, validation's passed, and then we're going to press create. And then it's going to go through the whole deployment. And here we can sing the Jeopardy song. But, of course, we'll just skip right to the end. Okay, so we've skipped to the end, and now we're going to go to our resource and see the overview. It's running. We have CPU, memory, network, all that kind of good stuff. You can go over to see containers and see the container running, events, properties, logs. If you open up the logs, you can see all the logs from the containers. Isn't that nice and pretty? Let's go over to properties here real quick. And this is the important part. Let's grab this IP address right there. We'll grab that right there. And then what we're going to do is go over to an existing Docker file, and this is using the OTel demo that is based off of the actual official OpenTelemetry demo that OpenTelemetry gives you. This one is here. It's the OpenTelemetry demo under the Retrace OTel agent branch. So all I've done here basically is drag this down into my local environment, and then we've edited it such that what we're going to do is add in this new endpoint. Now, this is the previous one I was using. We're just going to replace that with our 20.72 right here. We got to do that in a couple different places. Just 2 places, just the way this whole thing is set up. Now, you may not notice it here, but we have what we're doing here is modifying the OTel config YAML, right? So we're adding an exporter. We just called it OTel HTTP ACI. We're going to use the HTTP protocol for this one. We've provided it the IP address and the HTTP endpoint. It's insecure, so we're going to mark it as insecure. And then what we do is we go down here in our exporters for our traces and our logs, and we add it as an exporter to the end, OTLP HTTP ACI. So now this is already something I have up and running. So what we're going to do is over here on Docker Desktop, you're going to find the OTel collector right here, and we're just going to restart it since I've already got everything in place. So it's going to restart. It's going to start posting over to this sucker let's go look at what it's doing, right? And so as you can see, it's posting to traces, and you've got posts to logs in here to v1 traces, and eventually you'll see v1 logs. So we know it's getting the actual traffic in here in the container. Now, where are we going to see it pop up? It's going to pop up over here under Web Applications. Pop up Web Applications. And as you can see, we have OTel Demo 2. You can see we also have a couple other ones I've set up as I was going through testing. But there's like this feature flag service, OTel Demo 2, was coming from that Docker container. It's being routed through this Microsoft Azure container instance, and then going into the Retrace account and showing up under that OTel Demo 2 environment right there. Feature flag right there, load generator. So let's push some traffic through here, right? Okay, so here's the demo. We're going to go shopping real quick. We've got our StarSense Explorer Refractor Telescope. It seems like a very nice telescope. Let's add that to the cart. Let's go and add a couple other things to the cart just at random. Maybe a flashlight. What else do we have here? Lens cleaning kit. We always have to add the lens cleaning kit, don't we? Okay, and then let's view our cart. It's right here. We go to the shopping cart. I think it's going to come right back to the same page. Yep. There's the cart. And then let's check out. Place order. We have now placed our order. Okay. Going back over to our web apps. Give it a little time here to see everything. And OTel Demo 2, we're going to go to our front end. Very start of it, you can see some action going on over here. Total request 19. Let's change ourselves to the last hour real quick and view what we see. So we have API cart, we have this product, specific product, we have recommendation, currency, products, etc. Everything else. Let's see some traces in here, right? So recommendation, let's view one of these traces. We got fetch start, domain lookup start, all of these types of things, ingress, egress, showing us nice and good stuff. Let us see what other things we have out there. Okay, so as you can see, we have all of these applications starting up. OTel Demo 2 is the environment name that we have. And there we go. We got product catalog service, recommendation service, the front-end web, the front-end proxy. Looks like we have logs and such at the front-end proxy. We have everything we want. So there's our performance stuff. There's our logs that we have right here. 2 logs. No such file or directory. Yay. And yeah. Good stuff, gentlemen. Good stuff. Okay. There we go. Off to the races, gentlemen. Have fun.